Alrighty, welcome back. Got a nice fat hipster beard for you nowadays. Pretty cool, huh? I always have fun with that stuff. And then I go live and I can't change it, so it looks like we're stuck with it again. Well, been a few weeks, so actually it's been kind of an odd, slightly slow news cycle for the last little bit. But then this last week things kind of finally heated up because it had been a whole lot of kick the can down the road and not do much for a while there. And then they finally gave it up and shut down the government last Friday. Would have been a more interesting story had they not got it running again yesterday, but they did. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Shutdown Showdown, what went down, who wins, who loses. We all lose, even with the hipster beard. See, it's weird because the app, like, it'll let you set it before you start, but if you do that, oh no, oh no, uh-oh. We've done something very strange now. Oh, I think I switched it around. Ah, yes, I'm so good. You know, the thing that's actually kind of funny. Hey, what's up, Jackie? You and the twins, huh? Those little kiddos. Congratulations, by the way. We've got some more. We've got a kiddo coming here in the next few months. Next 5 weeks. That's actually part of the hiatus. We had a little bit of flu bug hit the family. It's been kind of crushing the whole country, and got our family pretty good. Pregnancy is not actually a good. It actually is a little bit worse with the flu. But everything's okay now. Everybody's nice and happy and healthy again. Yeah, you're doing great. Twins, I can't even imagine. So, congratulations and good luck. She's doing much better. Thank you very much. Anyway, so we're talking about the shutdown tonight. A little bit about the Dreamers, Shitholes, and racism. We had that whole thing happened in between now and the last show. I want to talk about that. It's kind of annoying to have to even talk about. But it is what it is. The attacks on American institutions continue unabated. Actually, it's getting kind of worse. We're going to talk about some of that as well tonight. And remember that Oprah story? Nope. Okay, then. All right, that's all we're going to give. Our media does stuff to sell a lot of ads, and that's kind of what drives them. And they know what names work for that kind of stuff. And then we'll cover some stuff we missed over the last few weeks. But yeah, I haven't given up on the country or you all, my friends. Romans, countrymen, lend me your phones. All right, let's get going. So, last Friday, the Shutdown Showdown. The United States government ceased to function, had no funding, because, there's a lot of disagreement, right, about the way the country wants to go. It's kind of defining what this was about. It becomes kind of what the conversation is about. Essentially, the Republicans want to get their funding. They want to get their wall. Democrats don't want to give them the wall. Nobody wants to actually really do the wall. There was funding for the Children's Health Insurance Program. That's what CHIP stands for. It's one of those government programs that actually, when it comes down to it, everybody likes because it works well and it actually pays for itself, because having healthy children leads to a healthy country. Having educated children leads to an educated country. This is not difficult, folks. And so it becomes very clear, right, when you are a government and you're not looking at a short-term, next quarter profit situation, that investing in children's health is just a no-brainer, right? Because you keep them healthy. The wall is ridiculously pointless and racist. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. But yeah, so the shutdown is a big part of that. The Democrats don't want to do it. They know that they've got a hard base on that. What we got out of this after they restarted, now there was a lot of gnashing of teeth. I've got a couple of people that I follow who write good stuff, and they kind of savaged the Democrats, and there's been Democrats got a bunch of crap lately. or this week actually, for giving in, caving, as the president wanted to frame it, agreeing to reopen the government while funding this children's health insurance program long enough that it doesn't get to be a bargaining chip again. I don't know. I think it was worthwhile, and I'll talk a little bit about why. So I think a lot of people confuse sometimes in politics the moral right and the politically possible, and kind of, especially when you get a little bit further down the ideological spectrum. Again, just for reference, so you know where I'm coming from, I kind of consider myself a pragmatic realist, so I'm not an idealist. So if you hear me say stuff that seems not, perfectly ideologically for liberal ideology, that's because I am not a liberal ideologue. I'm a pragmatist, ultimately. I agree with a lot of the Democratic stuff because they're paying attention to reality, and that's a big part of the pragmatic realist part. But anyway, so a lot of people on the left remember, like, the shutdown when Obama was president, and they remember or they heard about, the shutdown when Clinton was president, and how both those shutdowns hurt the Republican Party. And their thinking is, this one, because the Republicans are in control and they have the president, the White House, that a shutdown will be on the president. And that's not how it works out. Like, even those two situations that I've just described, it was the party in power that gained more power and prestige, especially when a shutdown happens in Congress, right? Because Congress is only one branch of the government. The president, wants to keep working, right? This is kind of your standard shutdown thing. Hey, come on, guys, quit screwing around. Let's get back to work, right? Let's do our jobs. And that's a strong argument. That's why the president and the party in power tend to win when there's a shutdown. So when you do it, there's not. I think I posted a thing where like 84% or 85% of voters, something like that, thought the shutdown was kind of pointless and useless. And most people, again, in the country want to see people getting along. They don't like the dysfunction in Washington. And playing into that more so, if you don't have near perfect optics around it, is really politically dangerous for the Democrats. And they're in a position, remember, the polls have been showing them up by 12, 17, like, generic points, which is huge, right? We had a Democrat won in the Senate in Alabama, folks. So the more elections we have with the current state, right, even the more we're going to move. So they don't want to tilt that cart too much. Now you might say, oh, well, they could just do it and they could just get all this stuff that can happen. Maybe they could, maybe they can't. We had, when Obama was president and when Bush was president, he wanted to do this stuff. The furthest we could get was executive action. And then we lost the White House. And that executive action went away. Now, of course, Trump is lying about the Dreamers, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, and the whole dynamics of the situation. But the idea that if they just held out, they could have gotten everything they wanted is not something that really actually happens very often for a minority party when they shut down the government in this manner. So keep that in mind. And 3 weeks from now, when we go to this, I think the framing that really needs to happen here, because I think the way that the Dems win this is reminding everyone that this guy campaigned on Mexico paying for the wall. And so anytime he talks about how they need to fund his wall, how Democrats need to slam him immediately. You said Mexico is going to pay for it. You go talk to Mexico. Talk to them about paying for your damn wall. We're going to work on the stuff that we want to work on here, which is finding a legal path to citizenship for these Dreamers, which today he agreed to. Now, what he says, I think people have realized, doesn't really mean a shit, because earlier, when he met everybody, he said, I'll sign whatever you provide. And then earlier this week, he said, well, I'm not going to sign that because that's not what I want. And it's like, all right, dude. He's just saying crap. So I think there is a political argument to win in this dynamic, but doing it to just shut down until you get everything you want isn't going to happen. and it's probably going to go the wrong way. And the beard is permanent, looks like. I can't change it. I wish this... I'm sticking with the beard. I like it. I don't know. Maybe I will have one of these one day. We'll see. So anyway, something else that happened while this was going on, and this is why, government shutdowns are bad for everybody, and there's a decent chance, even in this case, that they could have it stick on Trump, and I don't doubt that. Some of the other stuff I saw was about evenly split for most of the public. Of course, the partisan side of it is so partisan that there's not a way to really see... I don't know that there's many ways I could convince a lot of my friends that, this was actually, not... Well, I guess I'm trying to kind of say that, it wasn't a slam dunk for the Dems, but... So anyway... The China and the South China Sea. This was another story that I posted about a little while ago. China is basically claiming this now as territorial waters. Like, you can't come through here without our permission, and we're not going to probably give it to you. If you look at where the South China Sea is on a map, you'll realize that's kind of a big deal. This is something that happened over this weekend during the government shutdown. And apparently, there's just... Anyway, I wouldn't doubt that this happens again. But if you're thinking it's going to be a slam dunk and you're going to get everything you want, it's not going to happen. What you do need to do is try and frame this debate in such a way that you can get them to agree. Because I do think, and this is what sucks about this whole situation, because I think there's definitely a majority in the Senate, and I think if you take all the Dems and a lot of the sane Republicans, like are the ones who talk sane on occasion, like my friend Mike Kaufman over here in Colorado, who want to vote to legalize the Dreamers or make a way for path for senior citizenship, which is what I think most of the country, I think it's like 70% of the country, the people who don't usually have some misconception about the situation that these people are in, and it's usually not more than a couple exchanges of information with these kind of people who are against this before you realize that this person either falls into this category I'm going to talk about in a minute, or they just don't know what the hell's going on. Like a lot of people, well, they should have just applied for citizenship and just gone to the citizenship factory. We would have printed one up, but they's too lazy. Anyway, on the Dreamers, shitholes, and racism, I guess we've kind of already moved on to that. I was going to read Maxine Walters' statement on on Trump's shithole comments and how she... I mean, it's the way in the context, there's really no question about whether or not there was a hard racist element to these comments, right? When you're talking about during an immigration debate, you're saying we don't want people from those shithole countries, we want people from that country, and the two examples that you're given are, one is nearly all black and the other's nearly all white, and this has come up a lot of times in Trump's history where he goes into a lot of the white supremacist stuff and the terms and the way that they talk, and so it's definitely a racist thing. There was a lot of bullshit about that. Well, it's just, the way people talk and all that, and well, they are shitholes and all that, and blah 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 blah. It's an unfortunate discussion to kind of have, because really where the racist element came from it was not necessarily that observation in and of itself, because you can justify that, but it's when you throw up that within the whole immigration debate and throw up this other example, that it becomes clear what it is that you're looking for as far as merit comes for immigration. This is one of those words, and this is what they've talked about, how they want to do merit-based immigration. On how good this person is. How you measure that is the values you have as a country. One of the things we do have currently, one could argue, a merit-based immigration system, where the merit that we're looking for is people who need us like we need them, right? The people who want to come here or need to get out of where they're going, and we can provide them a safe haven. We can provide a place where they can flower as human beings. The stuff that sucks so bad about this, I'm going to talk a little bit more generally, but this just changing the whole concept of how the United States deals with immigrants. And you've seen now the slide, right? That move where they were like talking about all illegal immigrants. We only hate illegal immigrants at the beginning, but now it's slid over to, well, we want to stop chain migration. We don't want to have family-sponsored people coming over, and we don't want to have this. We don't want to have this lottery. We don't want to have people from places we don't like. And it becomes clear that there's something else that's animating this discussion, and that's where the Stephen Miller aspect of the administration, and this is the Sessions part again, and this is one of the things that Walters brings up in her statement, is Jeff Sessions has a history of being a racist, and he's the Attorney General of the United States. So things are not normal. And then you had Kirstjen Nielsen, what was like the whitest name in history, in her testimony about, well, I don't understand why that's bad. And that's who's running this ICE stuff where these people are getting kicked out. That's the person, right? And it was Kelly before that, right? When it was all nasty too, and all the stuff that's happening at the borders and the searching of the phones. We're in not normal territory still, folks. Anyway, a big part of this, why he's doing all this, is to formulate a lot of the chaos that he talked about during the campaign at the RNC speech. Because he came into office and there wasn't this hellscape going on, but he's very quickly making a lot of enemies. Very quickly setting up situations where he can exploit violent attacks. You know, we had another school shooting again, and the White House has been on this kick, right, that everybody who doesn't pay for the border wall is morally responsible for any death that happens from an illegal immigrant. They actually have done this kind of rhetoric coming from the White House, literally blaming anybody who thinks that the U.S. should stick with our long history of being a destination for immigrants and a place that believes in the power of immigration and to build a better future together. Anyway, going against that whole thing, sorry, I kind of lost it, man. But they've already set up this dynamic where anything that happens, he blames on people not doing what he would say. And because of this dishonesty, that's what he's thinking there's gonna be something that they're gonna be able to use before the next election. That's what he's trying to tell. That's actually what he's told Republicans in private. Don't be worried. We'll have like a 9/11. Everybody will be happy. But that's part of why being an asshole, why they're doing this, is to formulate chaos around the globe. And to be that, only I can fix it. Well, you just made it, douchebag. So moving on to the other thing, I've kind of been talking about this the whole night, was just the attacks on our institutions continue. They had a fake media awards thing. Again, this is, and it ended up being nothing but the RNC doing a webpage about, like, I don't know, 8 stories that got corrections, which, considering the mass of true stuff that's come out, and the fact, and one of the things that's really disturbing about this is even Vice President Pence called the stories about the settlement that apparently Trump's campaign paid for, where it wasn't a settlement, it was the hush money he paid to Stormy Daniels, the porn star, that our president had an affair with shortly after the birth of his youngest child. This is part of why, of course, Melania wanted to touch him and doesn't sleep in the same bed. But anyway, so we had these fake media wars. Even Pence is going after, calling this a fake story. And this is something that's well documented, shown in a lot of different ways. Nobody denies this. The money's out there. There was this company that was set up to pay it. And they just call it a lie and don't believe it. And then you have the evangelical group. I mean, there's just a lot of people. Again, this is something that I've reiterated for people who want to stand with Trump is that, the taint's going to get you. And he's just making all these people do this. And this was one of the things there were stories about for these fake media awards, that people on staff should not produce this stuff as a government agent, because you literally can't do that. It's illegal. It's supposed to be. But the problem is the person who enforces the law doesn't respect the law. This is also something that's gone on in the State Department, where there's, again, the brain drain for diplomats has been a story that's been well documented. And then they come up with now this idea that the State Department's going to be out there selling weapons for us and profiling the capabilities of American industry, particularly in this. And they actually talked about this specifically, and loosening some of the ITAR, international traffic and arms regulations. That's what that whole suite of regulations and laws is called, but changing that. And then they had the work requirements for Medicaid, which they've changed now, and that's already being pushed forward now in Kentucky. NAFTA, and again, the concept of our trade, fair trade, they slapped a couple tariffs on solar panels and washing machines today. At the World Economic Forum, we actually had our Secretary of the Treasury, I think it was either Cohen or Mnuchin, mention that we had already started a trade war. So we've got, and that with who knows what the president's going to say this weekend, which everybody's excited, which he loves. But it's going to be just the same kind of crazy crap and very nasty and something bad that he'll get people to repeat. There's something else too going on, and this happened. There was a good example of it this last week with this whole release the memo stuff, and this is again an attack on some of our institutions. It's happening in a way that I don't think we're really quite aware of. So in a lot of the more repressive regimes around the world, social media is used to shape public opinion in a much more nefarious manner than I think we would expect. And I think that's been happening here in the U.S. quite a bit. And we saw that because it's something that we weren't really aware of, wouldn't really think about trying to do or whatnot, right? Where you filter out certain people and then you plug in other certain opinions everywhere, right? So certain ideas become constant and certain other ones never see the light of day. This release the memo stuff has been so prominent on a lot of these Russian-connected Twitter bots, as well as all over Facebook, with a lot of questionable accounts that are very pro-Trump and very strange in the way that they work. So there was actually all the way to the point where a couple congressmen and congresswoman from California are asking Facebook to talk about this stuff. And what are you guys doing about this? And what can you tell us about what's going on here? Because this actually does happen, and these are attacks on our democracy in kind of nefarious ways. And hopefully we'll see a little bit more light of day on that stuff. But the way that this is happening, right, is to this memo, which this memo was apparently written by David Nunes of Nunez. No, it's not. He won't let it be that. But that's what it used to be. He wrote this memo, I guess, that outlines his conspiracy theory about how the FBI is actually part of the Clinton campaign, Hillary Clinton campaign, which only makes sense in Crazy Town, which is where a lot of the conservative media lives. But this now attack on the FBI and the integrity of the investigation into Trump is being pushed by these Russian bots to push public opinion to attack our institutions. And this is happening in fairly open light. So it's worth noting. So I'm going to talk about it. Anyway, wrap up real quick. We missed didn't miss that. The Fire and the Fury was released, that book about Trump that everybody realized why he's kind of an idiot. Don't forget that the president tried to sue to get that shut down, and threatened it and sent out letters, which again, attacks on our institution and our values as a free country. This is not something the President of the United States should be doing. It's wrong. It's wrong. Somebody needs to tell him that consistently. The Women's March. There was the other one, the second annual one this last weekend. Did not attend this time. Again, 7 months pregnant, walking, nope. And taking a couple kiddos would have been a bit much for me. So, good job, ladies out there. Looked like turnout was great. Which, again, it's great to see that so many people, the resistance is still strong. Like I was saying, that elections have still been swinging pretty hard, and I think we can still right this ship through the pretty normal manner of activism and elections. 2017 was another one of the really hot years in the history of the world, human civilization. One of the top 3 or 4, I guess, right? The GOP deniers and the climate change have their responses to this stuff down to a science, which sucks to call it like that because that's a euphemism, right? Oh, he's got that down to a science. Yes, their denial of science is down to a science. And that's one of the issues that we face now as a society, that people need to have enough information to make a choice when given these two things that are both well-manicured arguments, one based in fact and one based in fiction. And the problem with that is that normally humans like to split the difference. And that's a common way that we deal with that kind of information, which certain people know. So they introduce more radical opinions to split the difference. Again, there's ways to manipulate public opinion that are being done, not by our government. But also being done by this other stuff. I don't know. Climate change bothers me. It kills me that we're not being more realistic about this. 10 years ago, I wouldn't have thought that we could still be having these arguments after what's already happened has happened. And that we would elect a president that denies the whole thing. Fuck. I didn't want to end like that, but there you go. A little F-bomb for you. But that's the show. That's the show for this week. I think that covers pretty much everything I wanted to talk about. That I felt I could cover in a reasonable amount of time, which I think I've gone well over. But that was 3 weeks, so we'll try and do it maybe next week, maybe a couple weeks. It'll be our big episode 50. Oh, down to 4% on the phone. My beard it kept us powered for a while. So anyway, peace out, y'all. See you next week. And as always, stay good, stay strong, and be smart. Peace out.